My son told me he couldn't pay for my heart surgery because it would hurt his credit score. 3 weeks later, I sold his $18 million investment property. He says I betrayed him. I say I just followed his rules. My name is Elias Carver. I'm 60 years old. I live in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, a steel town that died before I got old. I worked the blast furnace at Bethlehem Steel for 34 years. Now I stock shelves at a Lowe's for $14.50 an hour. I've got 2 kids, Julian, my son, 38, Wharton MBA, private equity in Manhattan, married to a woman named Vanessa who wears scarves that cost more than my mortgage, and Maya, my daughter, 32, high school art teacher, lives in a 1-bedroom walk-up with a radiator that sounds like it's dying. Until 3 weeks ago, I thought I'd raised them right. Turns out I only raised one of them. Before I tell you what happened, do me one favor. Subscribe. Costs you nothing. And when this is over, tell me in the comments if I'm the villain here, because my son says I am. Now let me tell you how I got here. November, cold. The kind of cold that goes through your coat like you're wearing nothing. I'd been feeling off for weeks. Tired, chest tight. The kind of tired where you sit down and wake up 45 minutes later still holding your boots. Then one morning I woke up on my kitchen floor. Maya found me. She'd stopped by with groceries, something she did every Sunday even though I told her not to. Even though she was barely making rent. Even though she'd sold her car 6 months earlier and took 2 buses just to get to my place. She used her key, saw me on the floor, called 911. I woke up at St. Luke's with an IV in my arm and a cardiologist telling me my heart was severely compromised. I needed a procedure. $127,000. I had $4,100 in my checking account. Dr. Patel was kind. She didn't rush. She just said, very gently, "Mr. Carver, without this procedure, you have maybe 4 months." Maya sat beside my bed and cried so hard she couldn't breathe. I called Julian that night. He didn't pick up. I left a message. "Julian, it's Dad. I'm in the hospital, St. Luke's. It's my heart. Call me." He texted back 4 hours later. "Busy week. We'll try to call this weekend. Feel better." Feel better. Like I had a cold. I called again 2 days later, left another message. This time I said the number, $127,000. I said I didn't know what to do. I said I was scared. Julian called back that night, not to help, to advise. "Dad," he said, and I could hear the city behind him, the honking, the noise, the world that didn't include me. "That's a tough spot. Have you looked into payment plans? They want $3,000 up front just to schedule it." "Right. What about Maya?" I looked at my daughter, asleep in the chair beside my bed, still in her work clothes, still wearing the same coat she'd had for 6 years. "Maya doesn't have it, Julian." Silence. "Dad, I'd love to help, but Vanessa and I just closed on a place in Tribeca. We're leveraged right now. It's not a good time." Leveraged. "Julian," I said quietly, "I'm asking you to help me live." Pause. "I hear you, Dad. I do. But I can't take on someone else's debt right now. It would wreck my credit. You understand, right?" I understood. I understood perfectly. "I love you," I said. "Love you too, Dad. Gotta run. Client dinner." He hung up. I sat there in that hospital bed holding a phone that had gone silent. And I thought about the word leverage. Maya sold her car 3 days later, a 2005 Honda Civic she'd bought with her first teaching paycheck. She'd named it Ruth, after Ruth Bader Ginsburg. "She's small," Maya said, "but she fights." She sold Ruth for $2,400 to a guy on Craigslist. I didn't know until I saw her at the bus stop the next morning, freezing, holding 2 coffees. "Maya," I said, "where's your car?" She smiled. "Needed an oil change anyway. Bus is easier." I'm 60 years old. I've worked since I was 14. I pulled men out of burning steel. I buried my wife. I survived a mill closure and a recession and every punch this country had left. But watching my daughter stand at that bus stop in the rain, lying to me so I wouldn't feel ashamed, that broke me. The bus pulled up. Doors hissed open. She got on. I sat in my truck and cried. Here's what Julian didn't know. In 2009, when the economy collapsed, Julian called me in a panic. He'd just started his job. He had $18,000 in credit card debt. No savings. "Dad, I'm fucked. If I file bankruptcy, I'll never work in finance again." So I helped him. I took out a second mortgage on my house, the house I'd paid off after 30 years, and gave Julian $20,000. He promised he'd pay me back. He never did. 2 years later, Julian called again. "Dad, I need you to sign something. Tax thing. Just paperwork." He'd bought some waterfront property at auction, an old shipyard dock in Bethlehem, right on the Lehigh River, derelict, rusted, worthless. But it was in his name, and that made it a tax liability. So Julian wrote a document, a temporary transfer of asset ownership for tax efficiency purposes. He said he'd transfer it back in a year, said it was smart. "This way the liability sits with you, but it's worthless anyway, and I stay clean for the next funding round. You're helping me build something?" I signed it, because I trusted him, because I was proud, because that's what fathers do. Julian never transferred it back. I didn't care. It was a dock, a rotting pier on a dead river in a dead town. Who cared? Turns out, someone did. 3 weeks ago, I got a letter from a company called Vanguard Systems, LLC. They wanted to buy the Bethlehem shipyard dock, the one in my name. They offered $18 million. I read that number 6 times. Then I walked outside and stood in my driveway in the cold and laughed until I couldn't breathe. Because Julian, my genius son, the Wharton MBA, the private equity shark, had signed away $18 million to a man he'd left to die. I called the lawyer on the letterhead, a woman named Ms. Dietrich. "Mr. Carver, are you aware of what that property sits on?" A river with direct freight access, legacy industrial zoning, and fiber optic infrastructure from the old Bethlehem steel data lines. Vanguard is building a server farm. Your property is the last piece they need. They've been trying to locate the owner for 8 months. "And it's in my name?" "Yes, sir. According to county records, you are the sole owner, have been since 2011. I looked at the deed. Julian's signature at the bottom. Transferred to Elias Carver. Permanent. He'd meant to write temporary, but he'd been in a hurry. And Julian, for all his intelligence, had made one mistake. He'd signed away his future to save his credit score. Julian came to visit exactly once after my hospital stay. Not to check on me, to network. Julian came to visit exactly once after my hospital stay. Not to check on me, to network. He and Vanessa were in the area for a charity gala in Philly. They stopped by. Didn't call ahead, just showed up. Maya was there. She'd made dinner, spaghetti, garlic bread, the kind of meal you make when you're stretching $30 into something that feels like love. Julian walked in like he was touring a property, looked around, at the peeling paint, the secondhand couch, the radiator that hissed and clanked. "Dad," he said, hugging me like you hug someone at a conference. "You look good." I didn't. I'd lost 18 pounds. I looked like bones in a flannel shirt. Vanessa didn't sit down. She stood near the door in a cream-colored coat, holding her purse like a shield. She looked at Maya's apartment, and she wrinkled her nose. Actually, wrinkled it. Maya saw it. I saw her see it, and I watched my daughter, my kind, patient, beautiful daughter who sold her car so I could live, shrink. Just a little, just enough. We sat down to eat. Vanessa looked at her plate. "Is this ragu?" Maya nodded. "Yeah, it was on sale." Vanessa smiled, the kind of smile you give a child. And I watched my daughter, my kind, patient, beautiful daughter who sold her car so I could live, shrink. Just a little, just enough. We sat down to eat. Vanessa looked at her plate. Is this ragu? Maya nodded. Yeah, it was on sale. Vanessa smiled, the kind of smile you give a child. That's so resourceful. She didn't eat a single bite. After dinner, Julian pulled me aside. He looked around Maya's apartment, at the radiator, the paint, the couch. Dad, he said quietly, you know Maya's never going to make it, right? I stared at him. She's a teacher, in Allentown. She's going to be poor forever, and if you keep letting her carry you, she'll resent you. I'm just being realistic. He said it like he was giving investment advice, like my daughter's life was a bad stock pick. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, and I waited. I sold the dock last week, signed the papers. 18 million Vanguard transferred the funds Friday. I sold the dock last week, signed the papers. $18 million. Vanguard transferred the funds Friday. I paid off the hospital, paid off Maya's student loans, bought her a new car, a safe one, airbags, all-wheel drive, set up a trust for her future, and I kept enough to live, not much, just enough. Julian found out yesterday. He'd called the county assessor 2 months ago, trying to reclaim the dock, trying to fix his mistake, but the sale had already closed. He called me at 9 p.m. Didn't say hello, just, you sold it. I did. That was my property. No, Julian, you signed it over, remember? Tax efficiency. Silence. Dad, that was temporary. It wasn't. The deed says permanent. Your signature's at the bottom. I could hear him breathing. You can't do this. I already did. I'll sue. No, Julian, you signed it over, remember? Tax efficiency. Silence. Dad, that was temporary. It wasn't. The deed says permanent. Your signature's at the bottom. I could hear him breathing. You can't do this. I already did. I'll sue. Ms. Dietrich says you don't have a case. The transfer was legal. The sale was legal. It's done. Silence. I needed that, he whispered. I know, I said. I needed a heart procedure. Funny how that works. Dad, you told me you couldn't help because you were leveraged. You told me someone else's debt would wreck your credit. So I'm following your rules. This is my asset, my future, and I'm not sharing it with someone who wouldn't share theirs. I'm your son. Yeah, I said. You are. And I hung up. He showed up this morning. Julian and Vanessa didn't knock, just walked in. Didn't knock, just walked in. I was sitting at my kitchen table, the same table where he'd slid that document 13 years ago. Dad, Julian said. He looked awful, pale, hadn't slept. Good. We need to talk. We don't. You don't understand what you've done. That property was part of a portfolio strategy. I have investors. You have nothing, Julian, because you gave it to me, and I sold it. Vanessa stepped forward. Mr. Carver, this is incredibly unfair. Julian made a simple clerical error. I looked at her. My daughter sold her car so I wouldn't die. Your husband told me he couldn't help because of his credit score. Don't talk to me about fairness. She stopped. Julian sat down, put his head in his hands. Dad, please. I know I messed up. I know I should have helped, but this is my whole life. Dad, please. I know I messed up. I know I should have helped, but this is my whole life. No, I said quietly. It's 18 million. Your whole life is in a Tribeca penthouse. You didn't lose your life, Julian. You just lost a deal. You're punishing me. No, I'm surviving. There's a difference. He looked up, and I saw the boy again, just for a second. I'm sorry, he whispered. I believed him, but it didn't change anything. I know, I said. He stood, walked to the door, stopped. Mom would have hated this. Yeah, I said. She would have hated what you became even more. He left, and I sat at my table with my coffee, and I thought about the word leverage. Turns out I had some after all. Julian says I betrayed him, that I stole his future, that I'm bitter and cruel and small. Maybe he's right, but I'm alive, and my daughter has a car, and I sleep fine. So let me ask you. If your son left you to die for his credit score, if he looked you in the eye and said he couldn't help because he was leveraged, would you still give him a penny? Tell me in the comments. I'm reading them all. Every single one, because at 60 years old, with a bad heart and a paid-off hospital bill, I've got nothing but time. Did I do the right thing? Or am I just a bitter old man who couldn't let go? You tell me. I'll be here, waiting.